Well, hello there. I'm Papa John, and this is the 25 slashing movies of Christmas. Well, hello there. I'm Papa John, and I love to talk about movies that I love that others don't. And like I just said in that cheesy ass, cringy ass intro, we're talking about slasher movies. I got 25 Christmas themed slashers. I'm going to tear them up today. Some of them are great. Some of them are god awful. Some of them are just movies that I love a lot more than other people. And some of them I might dislike a little more than other people. We don't know. Well, I know. And to caveat to this, I've actually been reviewing one of these each day for the month of December, doing quick 1-minute reviews over on TikTok. So go ahead and check that out. You know, these little 1-minute reviews I posted on TikTok of each one of these with some ratings, although I'll kind of go into some of them, how my opinions have kind of changed a little bit since those original 1-minute reviews and ratings. We got the 25 slashing movies of Christmas. We got Baby Leatherface up there in Christmas spirit. We got a little Christmas tree in the back, like a little red and gold Christmas tree. Last year, that little Christmas tree was a prop in a mall retail store mannequin window. We also got a little gingerbread Aquaman back there. Got my hat on. I had a beard on, but I can't wear that for the whole video. It's too annoying. Like I said, 25 slashing movies of Christmas. Let's tear them up. Now, I am not someone that tends to do all of this shit in the randomized order that tier maker puts it in. Also, I forgot to mention, I got my little fireball Yule Nog here with me. And so I put them in the same order that I reviewed them all month long. We got to get into the categories here. The categories we got. So at the very bottom, we have the Nightmare movies. We got the Nightmare on Peachtree Street. Nightmare on Peachtree Street. I'm just going to call them Nightmares. These are just the terrible movies. Movies that are so bad that they're just bad. That's like a nightmare fever dream to get through, and not in a good way, not in a fun way, just bad. And then you have Oops, movies that are bad, that they're not quite nightmares, but, you know, they're still bad. They're Oops. And then you got Yup. These are movies that are just, yup, they exist. They're not necessarily bad. They're not necessarily good. They're not necessarily great. They're just, yup, that exists. And then you got the marvelous movies, the Isn't It Marvelous movies. And then at the very top, the very tippity top, you got Strawberries and Creamin'. These are the movies that are so good they'll have you strawberry cream in your pants. You heard me. And the real ones will understand these references. And you can still be a real one if you don't. All right. And we are starting off with maybe the most famous and the most infamous Christmas slasher, that being Silent Night, Deadly Night. You know, this it's pretty good. I do think it's a little dated. I think a remake could really help it. But I do really enjoy what they're going for here. There's another movie on this list with a similar setup where it's not necessarily your typical final girls slasher setup. It's more of like a character study of a man who just goes mad and becomes a slasher villain. And I think this does pretty well. I do enjoy it quite a bit. I think for its significance and the fact that I do enjoy it, I will put it in Isn't It Marvelous, at least for now. Just because, like I said, I do enjoy it. I do love it pretty much. You know, it's not going to be at the top of my favorites here. But it's definitely like in the top 10-ish. It's definitely in the top 10. I mean, there's only 25 here. But, you know, there's better ones on this list. There's hidden gems on here that'll be better. Oh, boy. This one. Now, we have a movie that is widely considered by a lot of people to be a movie that is so bad it's good. It's one of those titular ones, especially within like the slasher genre, within Christmas movies. People always say this is one that's so bad it's good. I disagree. It's the first 2/3, 3/4 of this movie is just kind of unbearable to get through, especially because I watched it back to back with the first one. And the first few parts of this movie is literally just showing you scenes of the first movie. And it's not good. You do get so bad it's fun and so bad it's good in that little last few minutes and whatnot. But overall, it's bad. I would normally put this in the bottom tier in the Nightmare on Peachtree Street. But I'll tell you right now, there's a couple movies coming up that I think that this movie does not belong in the same tier as them. Because this one at least has the third act that is decently so bad that it's good. Whereas there's like 2 or 3 other movies on this list that are just so bad they're bad. And so because this one does have that third act to it, I'm going to put it in oops for now. Because obviously it's bad. It's an oops. Definitely shouldn't have been made. And now moving on to Silent Night, Deadly Night 3. Better watch out. You know, I kind of came to realize that this one is one of the more liked and loved within these Silent Night, Deadly Night films. Personally, I did not like this movie at all. I am going to put it in the oops. I definitely am. Like I said, I did not like this movie at all. It's all right. I think I came into it with a little different mindset than most people. I mention this all the time. Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2 is actually my favorite horror movie of all time. Not the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, not The Shining, which it was for a while. But no, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. And a huge reason for that is Chop Top, played by Bill Moseley. And Silent Night, Deadly Night 3, Better Watch Out, features Bill Moseley as the slasher villain. He plays the slasher villain. And I was so looking forward to this because I knew that coming in. So looking forward to it. And he doesn't say anything. He doesn't say anything. Like, come on. You got Chop Top in this movie and you don't have him say any words. You got to be better than that. I mean, come on. He says like one line and it's like Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. And it's at the very, very end, like literally seconds before the credits roll. Like, come on. And another thing is just the slasher kills, just very unimaginative here. I hate the design of the Bill Moseley slasher with the whole, like, half his brain is out and the top of his skull is gone. And you just have that little sci-fi looking thing. I did not like this movie. I know it has some fans out there, but I'll be honest, Silent Night, Deadly Night, outside of the original, the better movies are the next two. That being said, the fourth one still isn't that great. So we got Silent Night, Deadly Night 4, Initiation. This is the one that has the least to do with Christmas. It just kind of takes place during Christmas, just because, and you kind of have this like pagan thing or Wiccan or, you know, some kind of sacrifice, ancient holiday thing, solstice thing. That's what it is. It's a solstice. And it's not even really a slasher, really. It's kind of like Season of the Witch in the Halloween franchise, or like just, it's one of those movies or sequels that you'll get in a slasher franchise where it decides not to be a slasher, even though that's the franchise genre that it's in. But you do get some kills in there and some nice slasher thrills. Kills and thrills. But overall, it's more of a body horror and like cult movie, you know, Midsommar in the middle of New York type of thing. Except not nearly as good. You don't have Ari Aster directing this, so it's not nearly that great. But, you know, you get some good body horror. I think the body horror here is pretty good. Decent gore. You know, some nice 80s schlock, except I think it came out in 1990. It's not great. It's a yup. It exists. It's just a yup. But now, we're moving on to Deadly Night, Silent Night 5, baby. Now, I'll be honest with you. I think if you're talking pure technical quality, I do think the original is a better movie, is a better slasher by technical quality. However, Silent Night, Deadly Night 5, The Toy Maker. I think I would rather rewatch it, mainly because you have a bunch of other Santa slashers. Mainly one in particular that we'll get to very close to the end. Well, actually a couple of them, of the Santa Claus killer slashers, that I would heavily prefer over Silent Night, Deadly Night. And so I think, in terms of this franchise, this Silent Night, the fifth one, the Toy Maker, Silent Night, Deadly Night 5, that's the one I'm more than likely going to rewatch the most out of all of them. I genuinely loved this movie. I love the whole kind of whodunit thing. Yeah, I get the title kind of gives it away, but I don't necessarily think the story itself does. And it doesn't necessarily give away the whole twist ending either, because it does kind of go off the rails there in the very end in like a bonkers way that is both awesome but also like crazy and stupid but also awesome at the same time. But I think my favorite thing in this movie is some of the kills. I love how you just get there's one kill in particular. It's like a twisted live action Toy Story scene. I loved it. Might be like my second favorite kill out of all 25 of these movies. It's genuinely a great kill. And I mean, like I said, I love this movie, Silent Night, Deadly Night 5. It's not necessarily going to be up there as one of the all-time favorites on this list, but out of the Silent Night, Deadly Night movies and franchise, it's the one I will rewatch the most. I don't necessarily think it's necessarily the best, but I will rewatch it the most. And now we have sort of the remake, which isn't a remake at all, from, I believe, 2012. And this one's just called Silent Night. You got the Harvey Bullock from Gotham in there. This one's a yup. I'm going to put it in yup right now. It's all right. I do think it's in the top 3 of the franchise. I think the thing that holds it back are the characters, really, and the acting. I think so. It's got good kills. I think the opening scene is really good. There's not a whole lot for me to say here. I wish they would have utilized the Harvey Bullock character. I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm blanking on this. Donald Logue. That's his name. That character, I think they could have utilized him a lot more, because I appreciate and always have fun with when that actor's on the screen. But overall, it's not that great. You don't even really, like, the killer reveal and like the whole whodunit aspect isn't even someone that's in the movie. It's you're told a tall tale, and it's revealed that it's the person in the tall tale. It's not an actual character that you've been with throughout the movie. It's fine for what it is. And now we have The Mean One. This is a 2022 film that basically takes the Dr. Seuss legend, the Grinch, and makes him into this, rated R slasher. I enjoy this film for what it is. I know it has some faults to it. It's kind of got a low budget fan film quality to it. Not nearly as bad as a film we'll get to towards the end, but I enjoy this film quite a bit. I know there are a lot of things you can sit there and nitpick and say are terrible, and that's just that it's terribly made movie. And I can't necessarily defend a whole lot of that, other than the fact that I enjoyed it. I enjoyed what they gave me. I mostly got what I wanted. But like I said, it's not great. It's definitely a yup. Outside of the technical issues that some of the scenes have, there's a great diner scene in here where you have a bunch of drunk Santa Clauses, and then the Grinch comes in and just murders them all. There's one effect within that scene that isn't great, where it just looks like the Grinch is stomping on a mop when he's supposed to be stomping on a head. But outside of that, I tend to think the kills are pretty decent. The thing that I kind of did not like about this, the thing I hated the most, I guess, even though I didn't hate the film, is just how they went about changing the lore of the Grinch. I understand they don't have the rights to use the actual characters, so they get around that by calling him the Mean One and calling the town Newville rather than Whoville. But the thing I didn't like is, in How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the whole town, the citizens of the town of Whoville, the Who's, in this instance, the News, they know who the Grinch is. Like, he's not this urban legend tall tale. They know who he is. They know who the Grinch is. But here they treat him like this Bigfoot character that nobody actually believes exists and all of that. And I that's the thing I necessarily did not like. I kind of just wanted a full force fantasy slasher where they all know this guy exists. They're just afraid of him, kind of a thing. Not what we got here. But like I said, they still kind of hit the right notes, and they defeat him by making his heart grow 3 sizes too big, which makes, spoiler alert, makes his heart explode and he dies. So I appreciate it for what it is. It's not that great, but I appreciate it. Now, if you're curious why I did not put Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2 in the Nightmares on Peachtree Street, this next movie is one of those reasons. Red Christmas. This movie made me hate my life for a little bit. It is god-awful. And this has no reason to be god-awful, other than the fact that it's a terrible idea. It's a terrible story. There's nothing good. There's two slightly bearable characters here, and they're the first 2 to get killed. This movie it's a movie even more so than a movie we'll get to later that was actually like in theaters and from a big studio. This one, it doesn't have the big studio thing that like another movie we'll get to later. However, it still has the same issue, but not necessarily. But I'm thinking faster than I'm talking here. This film will preach to you. It preaches its message at you. But the problem is, it is so bad at preaching its message that you can't even tell what the message is. This is a movie that clearly has a stance on abortion, and it wants to preach to you about what that abortion stance it has is. But it is so muddled in its argument. Like, it clearly has a statement, and it's clearly trying to preach its statement to you. But you can't tell what it is, because not only is it a bad movie that preaches at you, it's bad at preaching, and so you don't even know what it's preaching at you, because it's bad at telling you what its stance is, even though it's clearly taking a giant stance. And it wants you to know what it is, but it's bad at telling you what it is. If you want to know what this movie's about, essentially, this woman has an abortion, but the fetus survives the abortion. But the mother doesn't know that. And so 20 years later, when the fetus is 20 years old, it comes back to kill her family. Every character here is unbearable. Terribly acted, terribly written. You have a priest masturbating in a closet, which sounds like, ooh, so bad it's fun. No. This is not so bad it's good. It's just bad. It's a horrible concept. It's terrible at doing what it wants to do. I'm moving fucking on from this bullshit. Next, we have Don't Open Till Christmas. This is one I did not like when I first watched it. It's grown on me over time, because I've kind of grown to appreciate what it was offering, because this was one where I liked the idea of the story. I liked the twist on paper. I just did not like a lot of the execution of the story and like the writing of a lot of the first couple acts. But I still kind of enjoy it. You know, this is sort of the opposite of a Killer Santa movie in the sense that it's someone that's killing people that are dressed up as Santa. So the people that are dressed as Santa are the victims rather than the killers. And I love that idea. And I love the twist at the end with, you know, spoiler alert, he's like the sheriff's brother that's doing it. And I like the idea of all of that. I thought the execution was pretty poorly done. However, if you are in the mood for a British slasher around Christmas time, this one's a British slasher. It's alright. I don't have a lot to say about this one. It's one where I think it had some of the highest potential when you actually sit down and watch it. It just doesn't necessarily come together in the end. And next, we have a 2010 film from the Netherlands. We have a Dutch film called Saint, or Sint, or sometimes it's called Saint Nick. It's got a couple different names depending on the country and language that you're watching, or the country you're in, the language you're watching it in. So, I really enjoyed this film. I would say up until this point, because I'm talking about them in the order that I watched them and the order that I reviewed them on TikTok. At this point, this one was probably my favorite overall at this point. It is still only going in Isn't It Marvelous? I like what they're going for here. I think there's some CGI. The CGI isn't always believable when it has it. But overall, I like the story they're telling, and it's a horror comedy, and I think the comedy hits very well for the most part. And yeah, you have to read subtitles because it's in Dutch, but I don't care about subtitles. I'll watch them. I'll read them. You know, I love Italian cinema. I love Japanese samurai movies. I don't mind subtitles. That being said, this is not your typical Killer Santa Claus here, because this is based off of a Dutch legend about Sinterklaas, Saint Nicholas, Black Peters, a different version of the Black Peters than one we'll get in a different movie later on. And it's definitely more of a supernatural thing, which is something I'll get into right now. In retrospect, I should have included Krampus on this list, I think. Originally, I didn't, just because I don't consider it a slasher. But I always considered it more like folk horror and like a supernatural folk horror rather than a slasher. But I mean, this Saint here is kind of a folk supernatural slasher as well, with slasher elements. I haven't seen Krampus in a long time, so I don't exactly know how many kills are in it. I like the story they told here. I like the cop character. I like the whole every time there's a full moon on December 5th. So I guess this is a December 5th movie, not a Christmas movie, but it's December, and it's St. Nicholas. So every time there's a full moon on December 5th, Sinterklaas comes back to life with his Black Peter minions, and they just basically go and kill everybody in Amsterdam. This is from the director of the famed Amsterdam slasher from the 80s as well. So this is not someone that's new to the genre. He knows what he's doing, and he does a really damn good job with it. And next we have Santa's Sleigh. This movie's a yup, it exists, because it's a lot of fun. It is not good. It's very quick, though, and that's the thing. It's very quick. It's only like 10 minutes over an hour. It's only like 70 minutes. It's very quick, about the same length as some TV shows nowadays, TV episodes. So you can get through it pretty fast. You throw it on and just watch Goldberg dressed as Santa Claus wreaking havoc on a small town. And you'll get your enjoyment out of that, because that's all you get from this movie, and that's all you need to get. That's all the movie offers you, and that's all the movie wants to offer you. It's not over here trying to be Halloween. It's not over here trying to be the next movie on this list. It's not over here trying to be Get Out. No, it's just schlocky fun with Goldberg dressed as Santa Claus killing people, and you get a lot of fun out of that. It does a decent job with that. You know, the whole story here about, you know, this kid is like a descendant of the person that forced Santa Claus to become Santa Claus because originally Santa Claus was a horrible piece of shit, and so he lost a bet, and he had to spend like 1,000 years being nice. Okay, sure, but now that 1,000 years is over with, and he can be him again and go and kill everybody. It's fine. It's fine. It's very cheesy. It's got, I'd say the non-slasher elements do feel very Disney Channel movie-esque, original movie-esque to me. And I grew up on Disney Channel movies, so I don't mind that at all. It's fun. It's a yup. It's not going higher than that, but it's a yup. And next, we have the first movie on this list that will have you strawberry creaming. And that's, obviously, the original Black Christmas from 1974. This is a damn good movie. When I first watched it, I was a little underwhelmed by it because the hype around it was so great and grand. A movie that inspired John Carpenter's Halloween. But the thing about this movie, the original Black Christmas, is the more you watch it, the better it gets, man. And you can't say that about a lot of movies on this list. This is one of the few movies on this list that I've seen multiple times. And like I said, the more you watch it, the better it gets. The more you appreciate it even more. Because the first time I watched it, I was like, yeah, that was good. Early 1970s, a precursor to the slasher craze and all of that. I can appreciate it for what it is. But the more you watch it, the more it's just like, yeah, that is damn good. And the thing is, it ages so perfect. Like, some of the issues they talk about in this film are so resonant today even. Decades later, people are still having debates about about abortion. And this one tackles it in a way that doesn't preach at you. You hear me, Red Christmas? You hear me? I still have no idea what side of the argument you're on. I believe your title might tell me, but I can't tell based off of the movie you made. Anyway, I don't really care what side of the argument it's on. I just want to know. But like with Black Christmas, I think it does such a great job staying relevant over decades long. Even the phone calls, they're so creepy and so vulgar and creepy. Like, that is something you would hear in like a modern day horror movie and be like, ooh, that is vulgar, Like, that's even something like a Rob Zombie movie. And it's like that type of dialogue just so vulgar that Billy is saying through the phone. And it holds up as being vulgar. Today, it's not like, ooh, I want you to be in the bed with me. No, they're saying just C words and see you next Tuesdays and stuff like that. And it holds up so well. It does. You got a pre-Christmas Story, Bob Clark directing it. You got a pre-Lois Lane, Margot Kidder in the movie. It's so good. If you haven't seen this, you're missing out. Spoiler alert, though, it is not my favorite Christmas slasher. I know it's great. It's one of the greatest of all time. And not even Christmas, but slashers in general for a reason. It's great. But there's a couple others that I personally prefer that we'll get to later. Next, we have Black Xmas. This is so close to being marvelous. I might actually put it at the very bottom of marvelous, because it is definitely better than the ones in the yup tier. This movie was so close. It's so close. I do think it's so close. I think the thing that really holds this back is just like the last 10 fucking minutes, man. I really like what they are doing with the backstory. I like sort of the more torture porn. I hate that term so much, but the torture porn type of kills and slashes. I like that. I'm a big fan of Hostel, for instance. And so I don't mind that whole torture aspect, if you want to call it that, that's in this movie. He's not torturing them. It's just overkill violence, really. And that's why it's torture porn. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I think for the most part, it's really good. Yeah, you have the jaundice aspect that doesn't need to be there. You have the sister in there that doesn't need to be in there, but I feel like it's a nice touch to separate it but still pay tribute to the original. I enjoy this movie, and I really think it's actually really good. A really good, potentially one of the better remakes out there, until you get to the last 10 minutes, because this movie is so infuriating because it reaches its natural conclusion, its natural ending point, and you think, oh, nice, we're done. That was a great, great, great horror slasher remake, one of the better remakes. And then it decides not to be done. You reached your natural conclusion, just fucking end the movie. God damn. Because those last bits after it reaches its natural conclusion are by far the worst acted parts in the movie. By far the worst shot, written, worst everything in the movie. I like the visual of the actual last shot, but it did not need that hospital chase scene. Does not need to be in there. If you're gonna watch this movie, when you see Katie Cassidy in a hospital bed, when you get to the morgue or the medical examiner's office, just stop watching it, because it's just gonna make the movie terrible for you. Whereas everything before that was great. For what it is, at least. And we have our next Nightmare on Peachtree Street. This is terrible. The Black Christmas 2019. This is another one that preaches at you, but to its credit, you at least know what its message is. You hear me, Red Christmas? This one is bad. It's terrible. It has a very similar issue with the preaching at you, preaching its message rather than telling a story to support its message. It's just preaching it at you. It still has that problem, but at least it knows what it's preaching. And it does a good job. Well, it does an annoying job at it. Okay, Red Christmas, you hear me? Now, with Black Christmas 2019, the first time I watched it, I was like, okay, it was fun, you know. It's fun for what it is. You know, so bad it's fun quality to it. And I enjoyed it. You know, I support the message. I just think they did a terrible job at telling the message. That being said, I watched it the second time this month, and I hated it, man. I still support the message, but, like, come on. Like I said, tell a story that supports your message. Don't just write dialogue that tells you what the message is. You know, that's what makes Get Out so great, is it's a story that supports its message. It's not sitting there having characters tell you what the message is. I do think there are some memeable qualities to this movie. I do really love the whole, when they're in the frat party and they do the whole song and dance thing. I think that is gold. I think you place that in an actually good movie and it's gold. I think that song is gold. I like what they do with the song and the whole setup to it. But that's one scene that lasts, I don't know, like a minute or two. If that. Yeah, no. I guess there's a good icicle kill towards the beginning. And next we have P2. This movie is right up my alley. It's mid-2000s, early aughts, just 90s, schlocky fun. But it's also got depth and characters to it that just make you feel the tension and put you on the edge of your seat. Yeah, there's only 2 kills in this movie. And one of them is kind of just, you don't really get to see him die per se. You just kind of see the body get flown through an elevator shaft. But you know, and I think he was dead before the body got thrown. So, that being said, there's one kill that is really good, the one with the car. But it's just basically this woman, you know, she leaves her office Christmas party. She's the last one to leave the office. And she gets trapped. Her car doesn't work, and she gets trapped in the parking garage with a crazy man, a psycho killer who's basically in love with her. And that's why it's a like crazy stalker movie that is also has a couple kills in it. So it becomes a slasher, basically. You know, it's a lot of fun, though. Like I said, there's a lot of depth to it because you get like a sequence of this guy who's in love with her. A crazy man. A psycho man that's in love with her. And she shows her, you know, the videotape or the security cam footage of someone at her office Christmas party who drunkenly made a pass at her, and she didn't want any of it. Like a common story, a drunken guy goes, kisses, possibly even gropes someone, a jackass at a Christmas party, basically. But the guy, later on in the Christmas party, he sincerely apologized to her, cried his eyes out. He's like, I'm sorry, and blah, blah, blah. Fast forward, and this maniac who's in love with her has this very same guy from the office Christmas party who drunkenly made a pass at her tied to a chair, and he's over here. I love you. I would never hurt you. I would never kiss you or grope you unprovoked. Why don't you show this guy a lesson? I have him tied up for you. Go and show him a lesson. Go and show him what it feels like to be assaulted. And I think there's so much depth to that. Real, honestly, I kind of love that idea. Like, I love you. Not, I love you. I would never hurt you. This guy assaulted you. He sexually assaulted you. So why don't you show him what it feels like to be assaulted? And to me, I love that. I think that's a brilliant scene. That whole scene is brilliant. And the whole thing. If you've ever had a crush before, obviously, we're not all crazy like the guy in this movie. But, if you ever had a crush on someone that didn't have the best boyfriend, you understand where he's coming from, at least. You're not a psycho killer that's going to go and do any bullshit like this. But, you understand a little bit. And if I didn't tell you, I already moved it there. But yeah, it's strawberries and cream, and I love this shit. Okay. Moving on to Better Watch Out. This one is marvelous. I think this is one that I don't think will hold up as well on rewatches for you, but it is pretty damn good. And, there's a twist involved. It's handled pretty well, but at the same time, I felt like it was coming. But also not. It's not as bad as another movie on this list. It does kind of take a little while it took a little while for me to get on board with it, just because the whole premise is extremely awkward. A 12-year-old boy trying to force his babysitter to fall in love with him. This kind of works as a really weird double feature with P2 about someone trying to force a woman to fall in love with them. But, it is what it is. And I think once you actually get going with it, and after the twist and everything, it just gets going, I think it does a pretty damn good job. I think you got some pretty good child actors in here. From a child acting standpoint, they're actually really good in this. So there's not a whole lot of bad things to say here. It's very awkward is pretty much the only thing I can say. But it's just like adolescent awkwardness. It's not like bad directing awkwardness or anything like that, or bad acting awkwardness. It's just awkwardness because they're awkward preteens. But I do think writing-wise, it's a very, very well-written movie. Especially, I love the very, very end. The old middle finger at the very end, I thought was great. So, I don't have a whole lot to say, but I think the visual aesthetic here is pretty good. And you kind of there are certain elements here where it's kind of like a reverse Home Alone. And so that's good. They even take directly from Home Alone in one of the kills. So, and next we have It's a Wonderful Knife. This movie, I was a little more high on it when I first watched it than I am now. I genuinely love this movie for the most part. I love the visual aesthetic. I love the look of the killer with the whole all white outfit and the mask. I think it's so brilliant to have that for a slasher, because when he gets blood on him, it sticks out so good and makes for great visuals. And I think that's the thing with this movie is the visuals are so good. Visually, it's a very good movie. There's one scene in here where I was just like, oh my God, there's a scene, not necessarily a scene, just a shot in like this red staircase corridor thing. And I was strawberry cream in my pants. I love that shot so much. That being said, this is not a strawberry cream movie. It's good. I'll put it at the very bottom of, isn't it? Oh no, I'll put it ahead of Black Xmas. But the characters in this movie are what drag it down so much. I want to so badly put it in the top tier. I really do, because I love the visual aesthetic of this movie so much. And I genuinely love the idea of the movie, and it doesn't bother me that they show us who the killer is, because this isn't a whodunit movie, so it doesn't take anything away. I think if anything, it adds suspense to the fact that she knows who the killer is, but nobody's gonna believe her. So, she has to find a way to prove he's the killer, kind of a thing, because he's such a powerful man in this community. So, I think it's got its good qualities to it, but every character, every actor, I should say, is so over the top to the point that it becomes kind of annoying at times. But the rest of the movie makes up for it. It truly does. But like I said, it's every character, it's every actor, to the point where it's not necessarily a problem with an acting issue. It's a direction of the acting issue, because it is every actor and every character. Next, we have The Dorm That Dripped Blood. Yes, I have this on Blu-ray. It's good. It's got like 3 names, though. You got The Dorm That Dripped Blood. You have The Death Dorm. You have Pranks. I don't know why one of the names is Pranks. It's not a movie about pranks. It's not April Fool's Day. It's no. I think The Dorm That Dripped Blood has better ring to it. The opening credits say Death Dorm. And like I said in my TikTok video, my TikTok review, it's really only a Christmas movie by synopsis alone. The movie itself, it has like one shot in the very beginning that has Christmas lights on a garage. Then you get one of the kills towards the end, or right before the third act reveal, where you see little Christmas lights in the hallway, and one of the characters says Merry Christmas. That's it. You get like 3 seconds of Christmas in this movie. It's essentially, this dorm is kind of, it's going out of commission, basically. So they have to empty out the dorm, but the whole rest of the college has gone home for Christmas. And so they're here on Christmas, during their Christmas break, emptying out this dorm by themselves. So you just get this group of college kids stuck in this dorm, and there turns out to be a psycho killer who kills them. It's a very generic plot, really. And for the most part, it's a very generic movie. The first 2 acts, they're generic schlock-ish. Well, they're generic slasher fodder. You're not going to get the best stuff in there. You do get a good slasher villain-ish, or not necessarily villain, but slasher weapon in like a baseball bat with nails in it, like a Cactus Jack slasher. And you get a good kill with a boiler thing in the kitchen with the girl that said Merry Christmas. That being said, for as generic as much as those first 2 acts are generic slasher fodder, that third act, man, the third act is so good. The third act is so brilliant. Yes, you have to get through 2 acts of genericness to get there, but that third act is so good. I think the reveal itself is better on paper than it is executed, because the execution is very lackluster, underwhelming, and anticlimactic. But once you get past that reveal, you get this brilliant chase scene through this very tight boiler room corridor in the basement of this dormitory. And it's so good. You get some really good lines and performances by the crazy psychopathic killer. And you get an ending that is very dark. You get a very dark ending. Very, very much akin to Black Christmas 1974 version. However, it's not just implied in necessarily like it is in that one. It just kind of tells you and shows you. It had my eyes wide, my jaw dropped. The ending, I thought, was so dark, but yet I loved it for what it was. It's got to be marvelous. For the third act alone, I have to put it in Isn't It Marvelous? I would choose to rewatch this over Better Watch Out. Honestly, I think this one has very much rewatchability because it isn't really a Christmas slasher. It just coincidentally takes place during Christmas, so it's kind of like a Lethal Weapon-esque slasher in that sense. But I'm glad I got the Blu-ray. I'm glad I got the Blu-ray. It's not creaming. It's not creaming. It's not top tier, but it's brilliant nonetheless because of the third act. You will knock cheers. Next, we have To All a Goodnight. This one's going in the oops, the top of the oops. I don't like this because it is very, very much a painfully generic Friday the 13th ripoff, and it's so much a ripoff where it's not even just the kills. It's not even just the setup of teenagers at this secluded sorority house that gets a psycho killer in it. You know, similar to like secluded group of teenagers at a camp. No, it's not just a generic setup ripoff. No, it's the fucking story. It's the third act reveal. It's all ripped off of the original Friday the 13th. If you put Pamela Voorhees in a Santa costume, that's what To All a Goodnight is. It's just a painfully generic ripoff. They basically just replace Camp Crystal Lake with a sorority house, and they put Pamela Voorhees in a Santa costume, and that's what this movie is. And you know what? If it came out before Friday the 13th, I can forgive that. Then I would have a problem with the original Friday the 13th instead of this one. But no, I'm sorry. It's cheaply, horribly, lazily ripped off. Yeah, it came out in the same year. But no, I'm sorry. You don't get that credit. Christmas. Bloody Christmas. I was really looking forward to this. It's fun. You get two fun main characters, like metalhead main characters that are a lot of fun. They get a lot of fun references in there. You get some good music in there. Fun scenery. And you get some really cool lighting and camera work and visual aesthetic in this movie. But I could not stand the slasher villain in this movie. It's a robotic Santa that essentially just comes to life and starts killing everybody. And as a premise, I don't have any issues with that. But the robotic Santa sucks. I don't like it. I like the idea of having like this Terminator Santa. You just have to pull it off well, and they didn't. And on top of that, all of the side characters outside of the two main ones are shit. Especially when you get up there and you have the fucking like cop characters that are, there's one of them. One of the cop characters might be the worst character in this goddamn list of 25 movies. I could not stay. Even one that we'll get to in like a couple movies from now. That movie, we'll get to that movie. But this one might have the worst character. The movie itself is like The Godfather compared to a couple movies from now. But this movie, this character in Christmas Bloody Christmas, this cop character that you get introduced towards, like, I don't know if it's the end of the second act, the beginning of the third act, somewhere along those lines, is god awful. Oh my god. Why does that character exist? And then another big issue with this one is the third act itself. It's so overkill. It's so overkill how they go about defeating this robotic Santa. It's too much. I get it. He can survive he's like durable military grade tech that can be durable and outlast military weapons, but like, Jesus Christ, it just keeps going and going and going. Ooh, he's dead. No, he's not. 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 For the love of fucking God, stop. You did it way too many times. They go overboard in that. I do, like I said, it's a great visual aesthetic. You got two really good main characters. And overall, I think the team behind this movie, you can tell there's a very talented team behind it that elevates it up to a yup, whereas otherwise it'd be an oops. It gets elevated by the team behind it. You can tell there's a very talented team behind it. It just didn't necessarily come together as a movie as a whole. but there is obvious talent here, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do next. And next we have maybe a forgotten gem, and that is Silent Night, Bloody Night from 1972. This is the oldest movie on this list, and it's a really, really good forgotten gem. When you think of precursors to the slasher craze, you think of Black Christmas and Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Psycho. Honestly, I think this one is right up there. It's not, I wouldn't put it on the same tier as those ones because I'm not here, but it's up there, deserves to be in the conversation at least. That being said, it is definitely more of a crime, serial killer, murder mystery thriller than it is a slasher, but you do get a good axe kill in there. So you do get some slasher elements in there, definitely. And you get a good whodunit mystery in there. And you get a nice twist at the end. I love the whole mental asylum aspect and twist to it. I thought that was really well done. I do think there's a better movie in here that it didn't necessarily always come together at the end. It's still definitely marvelous. I put it at the top of marvelous. And I think it's actually really good, and I highly recommend it, especially if you're not necessarily into the whole schlocky, over-the-top slasher stuff. Because I appreciate both versions of schlockiness, but I also appreciate the serious stuff as well. So if you're not necessarily into the whole schlock or cheesiness, I would highly recommend checking this out. It's very much a crime thriller, murder mystery. You had a good bloody axe kill in there. It is older. You're not going to get the same thing that you'd get from like a Silent Night, Deadly Night, per se, or a Toy Maker, or a P2, definitely not a P2, or whatnot. It's good. This is a movie that I think deserves a remake. This is a movie that actually should be remade, because it's a forgotten gem, for one thing, but also the idea and the story itself is kind of better than the execution at times. Even though it's marvelously executed for its time, I think it definitely deserves more a remake. And I think this is one where you can remake it more along the lines of a Silence of the Lambs or a Zodiac type of movie rather than a full-on typical slasher remake. And next we have Silent Night I got my franchises mixed up there. We have Silent Night, Bloody Night 2. And there was actually apparently like a British remake. It's not available anywhere, and I wasn't going to bother buying it. And it also looked like there was a third one coming out this year on Christmas Day. I'm not going to watch either of them after seeing this movie. This is the worst. This might be in contention for the worst movie I've ever seen in my entire bloody life. For as much as I hate Red Christmas. Silent Night, Bloody Night 2... You are dead fucking last. Go fuck yourself. There's an element here where when I first started watching it, I was like, oh god, it's going to be difficult to criticize this movie, but at the same time, it's going to be easy. It very much feels like a fan film type of thing. But because the original movie was never actually copyright claimed, the Silent Night, Bloody Night in and of itself is public domain. And so it feels like a fan film sequel rather than a legitimate sequel. But because it's public domain, they were able to get it to be a sequel. If you think about it that way, I can forgive a lot of the unprofessional acting and unprofessional camera work and unprofessional editing. It's fan films, they're not usually meant to be these amazing, great, professionally made films. I can forgive a lot of that, and normally I'd put it above something like Red Christmas, which was, you can tell, for as terrible as it is, it's got some professional technical qualities to it that makes you realize it's a professionally attempted film. Whereas like with this one, it's not. Normally I would actually put it ahead of something like Red Christmas, but no. Because one goddamn thing is, I can forgive all of that. But your lazy ass writing, I cannot forgive. This falls into the same thing that Silent Night, Deadly Night 2, coincidentally enough, falls into, where they just replay, for fuck's sake, scenes from the first movie. They just basically replay the first movie, and it's infuriating. But the worst part about this one, that Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 didn't do, but Silent Night Bloody Night 2 does, is it kind of reworks the original movie to kind of change the story up a little bit. Not a whole lot. It's still pretty much the same story, but they change up some character motivations and whatnot here and there. And it's terrible. Like, come on. Why are you doing that? And I think the worst part is when you're intersplicing these, even in the 70s, yeah, it was professionally made, but it's professionally made in the 70s. Yeah, I know it was in the 70s. It's decades beforehand. But it still looks so much more professional than the scenes it cuts back to in the modern day. And it's just like, what am I watching? It's so bad that it's another one of those. It's so bad that it's just bad. And the kills in this thing. You know, I was comparing it to fan films. Fan films have better fucking effects than this fucking movie. There's the very first kill. This guy gets his arm cut off. And you can find better fake hands at fucking Spirit Halloween. What the hell are you fucking doing? Why? You can go to Spirit Halloween in October and find better fake hands than you see in this fucking movie. At least you weren't preaching at me, I'll give you that. Alright, these next 3 are movies that I will tell you right now are all going to be towards the top. We have Inside from 2007. This is a new French extremity film, so it's not going to be for everybody. There's going to be a lot of fucking gore. This is the goriest movie on this list. And I know, we have a very infamously gory movie coming up at the very end of this list. No, this one, if you think Terrifier 3 is gory, you have no idea what the third act of Inside will give you. Not necessarily the third act, but the fucking last scene, man. I think the premise of this movie, the premise is intentionally just extremely clicking time bomb-esque movie that just inherently has you at the edge of your seat. So if you don't know, it's about a pregnant woman who's alone on Christmas Eve, and her due date is Christmas morning. So not only is she pregnant, but her due date is like the next morning, like just hours away. And she's a widow. Her husband, the father of the baby, got tragically killed in a car crash. And she was in the car crash too, but her and her baby survived the car wreck. Her husband didn't. And so you kind of get this whole scenario where she's all alone on Christmas Eve while she's very pregnant, extremely close to her due date. And then she gets a mysterious home intruder. And bloody chaos ensues. So, there's a twist. I predicted this twist. First of all, you will predict the twist from the very first scene. The second you see the car crash, the second you see the car accident, you will know what the twist is. I predicted it right away, and I had never heard anything about this movie beyond the fact that it's a new French extremity film. The movie itself makes me forget that I predicted the movie. It's like, yeah, I see where this is going. Right after that first scene, I see where this is going. I see the third act twist right here. And then the movie goes along, and you just completely forgot that whole thing. Like, you don't forget the scene, the inciting scene of the movie, but you forget the fact that you predicted it. And you're just sitting here on the edge of your seat, like, worrying about this woman. And then the third act reveal comes, like, oh, yeah, I did predict that. There was, for most of this movie, I was sitting here like, oh, my God. This is like my new favorite horror movie. This is a 5-star classic. This is 5 slices of pizza. This is Papa John's 5-slice classic in this Christmas slashing horror movie list. And then the cops get involved. I mean, the cops got involved earlier, before the slashing started. And that was fine. And it was really well handled. And then you get some brilliant just camera work here. And then you get kind of close to the third act. And you get 3 cop characters that come back, and it's 2 of them are perfectly fine. They're perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with them. They didn't ruin the movie. And then you get 1 cop character, and the acting is good. The dialogue he has is good. The issue I have with this fucking cop character is he makes one of the worst goddamn decisions I've ever fucking seen in a fucking horror movie, in a fucking new French extremity movie. I really haven't seen that many new French extremity movies. The ones I have seen, I appreciate. Like this one, I appreciate it. But they all tend to have a couple issues with bad decision makings and some writing issues here and there. But I appreciate them, and I kind of love and defend the genre, or the subgenre, the sub of the subgenre. But, like I said, this cop character, I'm going to spoil you what the decision is. And it's usually, I'm good at forgiving bad decisions. Because when you're in terrifying situations, your brain's not always operating at full capacity or whatever. It's not focused. But this is a cop who's been trained in crisis situations. And here the fuck is what he does. So, the intruder, the cop gets up there to help the woman, and the intruder is downstairs, kind of got a little incapacitated, but, they are downstairs, and they cut the power, right? And the cop is upstairs with the woman in, like, the upstairs bathroom with this pregnant woman that he's trying to help. And he's just like, okay, where's the power circuit thing? And she says it's downstairs. And then here's what he does. He says, okay, I'm gonna go downstairs. I'm gonna turn the power on, and then I'm gonna go out to my cop car, and I'm gonna call for help, for backup, and I'm gonna call an ambulance. And then he asks if she can walk, and she can. Now, to get to the circuit breaker, he has to walk by the front door. And he knows this. The stairs to get upstairs are right next to the front door. And you know this as a viewer. And he knows this as a cop who's been trained in crisis situation. Why the fuck do you need to turn the goddamn circuit breaker on? Why do you need to turn the power on? She can walk. Your car's right there. The front door's right there. The front door, the killer's not even between you guys and the front door. What are you doing? Just take the woman to your fucking car, call for backup, and drive her to the fucking hospital. Why are you making the stupid decision to go turn the fucking power back on and then go call for backup in an ambulance, then come back and help this helpless pregnant woman who's been slashed in the face? She's got blood everywhere, all over her body. You don't even know if the baby's still alive, to be Christ's sake. What the fuck is this cop doing? Who the fuck prepared this guy? Who the fuck was the crisis trainer on this fucking cop? What the fuck? Why do you have to turn the power back on? Just take her out to your fucking car and leave. And call for backup and leave. And beyond that, alright? Fine, he makes a dumbass decision. Alright, fine. And then he gets taken out, obviously, before he can turn the power back on. But even after he gets taken out, he finds a way to ruin the movie again, because they have this nonsensical element that just looks like it's out of a zombie. They essentially just make a zombie for no reason. I don't think it's technically a zombie within the writing of the movie, but he comes back to life. He's got no eyeballs. His fucking face looks like a zombie. He bashes this fucking woman in her baby bump. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? This fucking cop character. The movie, like, the acting was good. His dialogue, the decision making, I guess the dialogue goes with the decision making, but it's not like annoying dialogue like you get with a lot of characters. I'm ranting about this movie, but I put it in Isn't It Marvelous? Because it deserves to be there. That is just one small character, but that character brings it from a 5 out of 5 to a 3.5 out of 5. That one character, if that one character wasn't such a fucking idiot, this would be a 5 out of 5 film. I'm ranting about a movie as this is a marvelous movie. The one character infuriated me, but I swear it's a marvelous movie. It's not for everybody because of the amounts of gore that's in it, but it's still worth checking out. And now we have 2 movies. This next movie, Christmas Evil. I will tell you right now, when I put this movie on, I was expecting it to be yup or oops, just some generic Christmas Santa killer schlock and fodder and slasher fodder and all of that. I was blown the fuck away by this movie. I'm sorry. This is one of those movies. I'm going to love it 10 times more than everybody else you'll ever see, you'll ever meet, you'll ever see a video about with this. This is my first time seeing this, and I can tell you right now, this is one of my new favorite Christmas movies. This is going up there in my yearly watch list. I could not believe how much I adored this movie. This is Silent Night, Deadly Night, but so much better. You know, you see the whole I saw mommy kissing Santa Claus bullshit. The opening sequence to this movie, the inciting thing sort of in this movie, the childhood trauma is, I saw Santa Claus kissing mama's twat. And this sounds like a terrible premise. It sounds stupid, I guess. But, you know, when you think about it, that would be a very traumatizing thing to see in real life. And this guy grows up, you know, this is how he finds out Santa Claus isn't real, obviously. And he grows up, and he's going to make sure that Santa Claus becomes real because he's going to become Santa Claus. And this is why I fucking love this movie. It is this brilliant deconstruction of Santa Claus. Because when you actually sit down and think about Santa Claus, first, I'm a Christmas fanatic. I love Christmas. I love Santa Claus movies. I love the Tim Allen Santa Claus. I love all of that shit. The Christmas Chronicles, I'm a big fan of. I love Santa Claus. I love Christmas. I love everything about Christmas, whether it's the religious Christian side of things. Because I'm not really religious. I don't go to church, really. But I consider myself a Protestant Christian. And, you know, but I still love the Santa Claus stuff as well. I just love hearing about even Hanukkah. I love the holiday season as a whole. I love this whole festive air. My favorite time of year is from Thanksgiving to New Year's Eve. But at the same time, when you think about Santa Claus, he's creepy as fuck. He's a child stalker. And this movie deconstructs Santa Claus in just that way. I love it. I love it for that. This guy becomes, in his mind, he's basically Santa Claus. You know, he works at a toy factory, and he keeps his naughty and nice list of kids in the neighborhood. But you know how he keeps that naughty and nice list, and how he decides who's naughty or nice? He stalks children. It's creepy as fuck. It's very creepy. And it feels creepy, because it's meant to feel creepy. And I just love, it's a whole descent into madness. It's like Silent Night, Deadly Night. It's not a final girl slasher. It's a descent into madness, and you just see this character study of a guy who becomes crazy and becomes a slasher villain in the end. And then it kind of, when you get into Christmas Eve, he is super, not just super glue, he permanently glues a beard and mustache on his face, puts on the Santa costume. He just starts breaking into homes, leaving gifts. He leaves real toys and gifts, but he's breaking into homes. And I think it's also weird. It's a weird concept that I love about this is when he runs into adults on the street. If an adult is being mean to him and be like, "Oh, it's Santa Claus," and mocking him and all of that, he kills them. But when he comes across a Christmas party and he's like, "Oh, hey, look who's outside. Come in here. Come be a part of our Christmas fun." And they're all nice to him and everything. And he gives genuine toys to all the children. And they're just all nice. He doesn't harm a soul. He doesn't harm a fly. He's just being nice. Nice Santa Claus. So there's a weird message here. And always be nice. Because you never know how the guy's going to react if you mock them. You know? And always be nice. Because he might kill you. I think the ending slightly little anticlimactic when he comes to his brother. And then the other thing I just remembered is a brilliant scene in the way it plays out, especially where he runs into a group of kids on the street and they're all like, "Oh, it's Santa Claus, it's Santa Claus." Very, very reminiscent to a scene in the next movie, in our last movie, where the kids are all just running up to him because it's Santa Claus, right? And the parents are getting a little skittish, like, "Who's this weirdo? We just heard the news about a Santa Claus killing two grown men." And the parents are like, "You got to get away from them. We got to capture this. He's not a good guy." And the kids are just, it's Santa Claus. And the kids are protecting the serial killer Santa Claus because it's Santa Claus. And Santa Claus is being nice to them. He's nice to almost all of the kids. He does give coal or dirt. I think it's just dirt because I don't think he has access to coal. But he gives dirt to a couple naughty kids throughout the film. But these kids, they're protecting him because he's this nice Santa Claus. And in his mind, he is Santa Claus because he's kind of nuts. I thought that scene was really well done. And there's so much in this movie that I think is just brilliant. Deconstruction of Santa Claus. I love it. I love it. Plus, you still get cheesy 80s slasher fodder and fun in there. And lastly, we have one from this year. The infamous slasher horror film from a couple months ago, Terrifier 3. This definitely goes right back up there in Strawberries and Creamin'. I love this fucking movie. This is my favorite Terrifier movie. I love Terrifier 2. But Terrifier 3 is my personal favorite. And a lot of that just simply comes down to there are so many great Halloween slashers out there. And as you can tell here, there aren't that many great Christmas ones. You got like 3 or 4. You got 4 in the top tier here. Maybe I missed a couple. I mean, I know I missed a lot of them, but I think I got most of the really great ones that would have a chance of being in the top tier. I love Terrifier 3. I think it's fucking brilliant. It's like the perfect blend of like supernatural exorcism, slasher, and slashers, especially when you get to the third act. But at the same time, it's like a perfect blend of like comedy slasher with serious, terrifying slasher. Pun intended, pun also not intended. Also, check out my shirt. One thing I will do to compare this movie, not necessarily story-wise, but I would say Terrifier 2 is kind of like the Nightmare on Elm Street, whereas Terrifier 3 is the Dream Warriors. They're both great. Obviously not story-wise with Terrifier 3 and Dream Warriors, but in terms of like the blend of the comedic Art the Clown with the terrifying Art the Clown, just like Dream Warriors was the perfect blend of comedic Freddy with serious Freddy. I think that's what Terrifier 3 is. It's that brilliant blend. Because this scene with Santa Claus in the bar, hilarious, and then just boom. And then you got the scene, which is the one I was referencing when I was talking about Christmas Evil, in the mall where all the kids just see Santa Claus and he's handing out toys and they all run up to him. But it's a very different result in this one because this guy doesn't care about killing children, unlike the killer in Christmas Evil. So it's a lot more terrifying. Pun intended. And then you got, I think one of my favorites is, even though the character of Mia is very annoying, and that's kind of a downside to this movie, it's the only downside in my opinion. She's part of like the greatest part of one of my favorite parts of this movie and franchise as a whole. And that's when Art the Clown is in the dorm. And she's over there just talking about, I want to know what it's like. He's the best serial killer since Jack the Ripper. I want to know what it's like to be that close to evil and looking him in the eyes and feeling evil breathe on my neck. And Art the Clown's like, she says, like, Art the Clown's the best serial killer since Jack the Ripper. And he's like, oh, shucks. Oh. And he's just over there listening to it. Just, I thought that was comedic gold. And then they have the ensuing kill scene is my favorite kill scene out of all 25 of these movies, in the shower with the chainsaw. Big fan of chainsaw kills. And yeah, I love this movie to death. And that's why it's in Strawberry and Creamin'. It's not for everybody. So yeah, that is the tier list. There's actually a lot in Isn't It Marvelous. I'd say there might be a 6th tier here where I would put like Better Watch Out, It's a Wonderful Knife, and Black Xmas, like a little tier between Isn't It Marvelous and Yup. Because I do think they're on a different tier than Silent Night from 2012 and all of those movies. But at the same time, I think they're on a lower tier than Silent Night, Deadly Night, and Silent Night, Deadly Night 5. Yeah, so you got Christmas Evil and Terrifier 3 kind of tied there at number 1 for me. But you also have Black Christmas and P2 in the top tier as well. Then in last place, you have Silent Night, Bloody Night 2, and you have Red Christmas. You have Black Christmas in the last tier as well, but the bottom 2 are definitely Red Christmas and Silent Night, Bloody Night 2. If anything, those are the 2 movies that you need to throw away. Those are movies that make me consider even adding another tier called Forget Me Thoughts, because these are ones that need to be forgotten. Black Christmas 2019 has at least one really good, fun scene, and it has one good character, but he's horribly acted, so it doesn't really matter. there's anything you want to take out of this video, watch Christmas Evil. Well, I've been Papa John, and I know these are not the only Christmas slashers. I know you got the Ginger Dead Man movies. You got the direct-to-video Jack Frost slasher horror movies from the 90s. And there's some others in there. Krampus probably could have been included over Silent Night, Deadly Night 2, or Red Christmas, or whatever. But I didn't include them. So if you want to, you can. You can tell me your tiers in rankings and whatnot in the comment section down below. Tell me why Silent Night, Bloody Night 2 is good or Red Christmas is good. Help me understand what Red Christmas is trying to say. But check out Christmas Evil. Tell me why it sucks. Tell me why you hate me because I like the Terrifier movies. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this. Give me a thumbs down if you didn't. I've been Papa John. And as always, keep it hot.